Kathy. Welcome to the Colorful Homeschooler Podcast, where we parlay on productivity, personality, passions, education, and theory. I'm a lover of Jesus, a wife of 20 years, and a homeschool mama of 4 special needs boys who keep me constantly active. I'm so glad you're here to join me. Pull up a chair. There's space for you at this table. Welcome back, everyone. So who else is trying to finish strong for the year? Sorry that I didn't post last week. Things have been a little crazy around here, as I'm sure all of you can imagine being homeschool mamas. I thought I'd talk today about something specifically Charlotte Mason. This is applicable to other homeschool philosophies if you choose to notebook. I recently did a deep dive study into what notebooks Charlotte Mason wrote about, talked about, recommended, or used in her parents' union school. And the results were pretty interesting to me. I complete some of these notebooks, as I talked about in All the Paper We Cannot Store, my episode, and I will link that in the show notes. Just about the actual notebooks that I use myself. However, use of notebooking in homeschooling itself is not exactly what I talked about in that episode. This episode is going to be all about these actual notebooks used in a homeschool setting to further education. So, what's the first notebook you think of when you think of Charlotte Mason philosophy? The nature notebook, of course, our nature journal. And I do keep a nature journal. My children keep nature journals. It's one of my favorite practices that we've been doing for all 10 years of homeschooling. But let's go into the actual Charlotte Mason recommended, what is a nature journal? How is it scaffolded? How do you build and grow as your children get older, etc.? So remember, for Charlotte Mason and for us also, we should, and she did, consider nature journaling and the study of nature to be hard science. Are you familiar with this term, hard science? Generally, what it means is this. A hard science is going to deal with the physical world. It's going to establish quantitative data that is measurable through empirical evidence and laboratory experiments. So, a hard science would be something like physics or chemistry. A soft science, and these are loose definitions, but in the collegiate world, a soft science is something that may have laboratory experiments, of course, but basically is about human behavior. So it relies a lot on interpretive analysis and trusting what people say about themselves, more subjective reporting. And then deducing from the subjective reporting what could the theory possibly hold true. So that's the difference between a soft and a hard science. Charlotte Mason did, and we should as well, consider nature journaling hard science throughout the whole of school. So that's pretty important to remember, that as you're going about your younger years with your Charlotte Mason homeschool, don't be discouraged that there's no quote-unquote hard science being learned. You don't have a textbook and you're not doing your standard school science experiments in 3rd grade or Form 1A. You are instead observing. Use the term hypothesis if you want to talk about the scientific method, but you're observing nature. You're learning about nature. So let's dive into the nature notebook. So when your children are young, under 9 years old, Charlotte talks about keeping a family diary. The mother would keep this to model the practice of nature journaling for the children under 9 until a child can keep their own. Later, it would be considered to be a compilation of the family's nature knowledge. So I did this when my kids were little. They would also have their little notebooks open and they would be painting or drawing, and very little verbiage would be going in there. But mine would have lines drawn to different places. I would have labels. I would be writing down all of the things we were learning in the different nature programs that we went to, or the different nature lore that we were reading. When we were narrating, I might write down snippets of what they said next to the picture of whatever it was that we were studying. These are examples of how you would keep a family diary. I didn't know it was called that when I was doing it, but I did do this practice. Next, your children would get into the nature notebook, and they would keep this going throughout their entire years of schooling. I love this practice, and I'll get into some practical ways that we have used it. But for example, one of the things that you can find in an article called The Works and Aims of the PNEU Schools is a quote that says, "Paints from nature, flowers, birds, insects, animals, in short, any natural object which takes his fancy." And he writes his own descriptions and notes, not those dictated by their teacher. Children who are too small to write dictate their notes, which are written down for them. Older children make lists of birds and flowers, sometimes of mosses, seaweeds, fungi, etc., with their English and Latin names, natural order, and date and place of finding. In Home Education, Charlotte Mason wrote, "Innumerable matters to record occur to the intelligent child." So that's pretty exciting to think about the different things we can place inside our nature notebook. Let's dive into that quote. So, painting from nature, flowers, birds, insects, animals, any natural object which takes the child's fancy. Now, I would suggest that you continue to do this alongside your child and show them that it is a valuable part of life, right? Not just that it's something they need to do for school, but it's something beautiful that you wish to take part in as well. It will also grow your ability to have an eye to see the beauty that's around you, the beauty that gives glory to the Creator. Now, we don't worship the creation, but my goodness, beauty exists for no other purpose than to shine a light on the true majesty of God. I'm amazed by that every time I nature journal. So I tell you, keep going, keep doing it. Painting from nature, things that the child enjoys. So he's supposed to paint either from memory or be in the field and paint there. Now, we do complete this process in the field sometimes. We have also painted from memory at other times. But sometimes my children want to watch YouTube videos about how to draw a specific insect or a specific animal or leaf or moss that we have seen. And once in a while, that's fine. As long as they're stretching their drawing from memory muscle, as long as they're stretching their "we are nature journaling in nature" muscle, then once in a while they want to watch a YouTube video, I say that's fine. Remember, the philosophy should work for you, not you for the philosophy. And for my family, drawing from YouTube videos every once in a while was an exciting reward for a beautiful nature journal up to that point. Not necessarily a beautiful artistic nature journal, but keeping to the truth and what they saw and great nature journaling. That would be something that I would reward by letting them do one lesson from a YouTube video. So do with that what you will, but that was my practice. Next thing in the quote, he writes his own descriptions and notes. So, as John Muir Laws talks about in his nature journaling course, which is free online, and I can link that in the show notes, there should be words in our nature journal. Not just pictures, words, labels, numbers, distances, measurements, different things. So many words can go in our nature journal, so don't forget about that. And don't let your child forget about that. As their writing skills increase, have them write the name of whatever it is they're seeing on the page. That grows their writing, it grows their observation, and it will help them to name many flowers and trees and leaves and leaf shapes as they get older because they've been writing it since they could first write in their nature journal. Children who are too small to write dictate their notes, which are written down for them. My youngest son, he and I and the other boys went to a pumpkin patch to study pumpkins. We did the life cycle of a pumpkin that week. We really went into pumpkins. When we went to the pumpkin patch, we painted in the field and then came home and continued to draw and label our pumpkins. This was when they were little. This was not last week. And my youngest still remembers that orange blob of paint was his pumpkin day, his day at the pumpkin patch. And he had a couple of sweet little notes that he asked me to write down on the page with his pumpkin patch painting. So everyone, I encourage you, your children will remember. This is a meaningful exercise. Okay, let's keep going through that. Quote, older children make lists of birds and flowers, sometimes of mosses, seaweeds, fungi, etc., with their English and Latin names, natural order, and date and place of finding. Now, I love this, and I did not do it for years. This is actually a practice that I came upon again while I was researching for this podcast and for an in-person class that I recently taught on this topic. And to be honest with you, I've learned about it before and promptly forgotten. So we are doing it next year. My third born is very excited about starting the practice, and I can't wait to have our own family list in the back of our nature journal. But let's go into that a little bit. In the back, you would put a flower, insect, bird, moss list. So what I would suggest is open it up, have the two pages that face each other, draw across the top a line, and then a tiny little column with each first letter for the month in order, obviously, and there should be enough room for maybe 2 years worth. And then on the side, you have the common name of the moss or the insect or the bird, whatever it is you're keeping track of, common name, and then the Latin name. And then maybe you just make a checkbox if you saw it in that month. Maybe you write how many you saw in that month. Maybe you want a little more detail, so you only do 1 year's worth of months that you can write in, and maybe you write the exact date that you saw it. So that goes in the back. And later on, she does talk about it being tabbed so that you can find it easily. So not just stuck in the back and you have to flip around to find it, but actually tabbed so you can pull the tab and open it like your Bible tabs. Next, she talks about innumerable matters to record occur to the intelligent child. She says, as for drawing, instruction has no doubt its time and place, but his nature diary should be left to his own initiative. So think of this as the earliest form of inquiry-based science education and how important that is. I wanted to make one other mention of the quote, innumerable matters to record occur to the intelligent child. Recently, I was having a conversation about a specific landscape that's very viewable around my home in Boise. And it's something that I find truly beautiful, and many others think it's very ugly. It's all kind of the same yellowish color because we are a high mountain desert, and I've always found it stark but lovely. And I read a quote, and this is all thanks to my mom and dad, who from very young took me places and would point out the beautiful things in every landscape. So thank you, Mom and Dad. Because now, everywhere we go, I see the glory of God in all of the different landscapes, and I think they're all beautiful in their own way. And of course, I like some more than others, but that is what I see, is the glory of God reflected in the beauty of nature. And this quote from Charlotte Mason said that to the trained eye, everywhere they look is the majesty of God. But to the untrained eye, they may see ugliness even in a blade of grass. And that's amazing to me because my parents began it, and I continued it once I was a functioning adult. I continued to go out into nature, and I continued to train my eye to see the beauty everywhere. And I've tried to do that for my children, and only time will tell if they picked up that practice as well. But I know tonight when my youngest was praying for his wife, we do that already. He's only 11. He is not married or engaged. There's no arranged marriage. But we pray for his wife. And tonight he prayed, Lord, please let her like hiking. Then he went off on this little diatribe about not really hard hikes that are really steep, but moderate hikes where you're a little tired at the end. Well, Lord, you know what I mean. But I just smiled inwardly because this is the child that used to literally scream when I took him out of the car and made him start nature walking. And I finally had to start bringing apples and sometimes little candy canes for him to enjoy on hikes with us. And now at 11, he just prayed, Lord, let my wife love to hike and forage. And my heart skipped a beat. Right? Hold on to those moments, mamas, because sometimes we have no idea if anything that we're doing is working. And then something like that happens and you can say, Okay, I'll count that a win. On days where I need a win, I will absolutely count that. How precious. So, nature journaling, back to that. Lots to say about it. So, another thing that Charlotte Mason talked about were scrapbooks or collections. Here's a quote from Home Education. "The truth is that those who have never entered on scientific pursuits are blind to most of the poetry by which they are surrounded." Well, there's the quote. Don't I feel silly? It's written right in my notes. That's very similar to the quote I was thinking of. So, again, being able to look around and see beauty in everything. Flower pressing was found in a few nature journals that they've investigated from the PNEU back when Charlotte was teaching. However, most of the time it would only be one or two. And there's many mentions of actual flower pressed collections with the leaves. For example, she would say, from your collection of 10 pressed flowers with leaves, be able to name such and such. And that would be for the exams. So these weren't usually kept in the nature notebooks. This must have been a separate book back in the classroom for flower pressing. It's unclear if it was a field journal or if it was a separate notebook. There's actually a fantastic flower pressing kit that I will link in the show notes, and I'm going to be creating some Instagram content using this flower pressing kit this summer, so look forward to that. Finally, let's think about the hard sciences in high school or upper forms. So definitely late Form 3, Form 4, and on. These are the lab books and science notebooks. Now, Mason does mention special studies and experiments. So it is thought that she expected all of the sciences to be within and alongside nature study. So these were all together, which I love. Why are we so intent on separating the sciences these days? Chemistry, physics, biology, anatomy, it all works together. It's all present throughout God's creation, right next to each other. Gravity wouldn't exist if it wasn't for astronomy, right? So they all work together. So I love that she had all of these notebooks together. Now, my third born, very in love with science. He has a large notebook which he has tabbed the separate subjects. Earth science is one. We're studying ecology right now. Also nature journaling, also physics we studied this year. And then last year was chemistry. We do botany. So all of these are in the same notebook. Now, it's almost full. So what he chooses to do next year when he goes into high school, I'm not sure, but that is how he has kept it for his entire middle school years. There is also a calendar of firsts. This is where did you see it and when each year. So this is very dependent on your family and what you are observing and loving noticing. So the first snow, the first robin redbreast, the first worm on the sidewalk. I saw my first snail return yesterday. That was across my running path. And that was pretty exciting because I love the snails in my neighborhood. This was sometimes kept in the nature notebook, but she does mention it to benefit being seen, being able to look at year to year. So you get used to and anticipate, say, the first catkin or the first day you're sneezing from all the pollen in the air. What is important to your family? Write that down. How exciting. So this is how she scaffolded the nature notebooks. You would start with the family diary. Then you would begin your nature notebook, and this would include a calendar of firsts, hopefully up on the wall, as well as the listing in the back of the different species that you're running into as you're nature walking. Then you would begin doing lab notebooks and science notebooks alongside your nature journals. Or you will move your nature journaling portion into a lab notebook. Now, when I did high school nature journaling, I actually had my son do full-scale labeling, full-scale diagrams. Any measurements had to be put in there. So we made it a full field notebook that you've seen pictures of by Isaac Newton. I tried to emulate those kinds of notebooks so that my son was truly growing and advancing in his scientific record keeping. So use that as you will. That did not come from Charlotte Mason's writings, but I believe it's still in line with the philosophy. So that is how we kept nature journals throughout our entire school years. Now, I still have 3 boys coming up through homeschool with Charlotte Mason, and who knows if my use of the philosophy will change, but this is how we've been employing these through all this time. In next week's episode, I will be going into language arts notebooking and finally into historical notebooking or social studies notebooks. And this will enable you to understand fully what Charlotte Mason said about each of the categories of notebooking and how she put them all together. But I will tell you what you will notice the most is that every notebook that she has the children make, and hopefully that you have your children make, should come from their own interests. It should not be something that you tell them what to write down in these specific notebooks. She wanted the child to take hold of their learning, and that is a cornerstone of her philosophy. So thank you so much for listening to my explanation of nature notebooking in a Charlotte Mason homeschool. I hope that this was encouraging. I hope you like, follow, and share these episodes with others. Please check me out on Instagram. I have so much engaging content coming out right now. I'm having fun making different videos, trying to make funny ones as well as informative ones. So please come follow me on Instagram, like and share. Tune in every Tuesday to episodes, and I look forward to hearing from you if there is anything you want to hear from me over the summer. God bless you as you're homeschooling, and remember, I believe in you.